Hey everyone! Welcome to our first ever restreamed Meet the Pros. Meet the Pros is a series. It's a weekly series where we chat with some of our Ecamm Live users and find out how they use the product, what they do, how they use live streaming, and see if they have any interesting pro tips for us. I'm Glenn Aspesley with Ecamm Network, coming to you live from Ecamm headquarters, and I'm really excited to introduce to you today a special guest. We have Ian Anderson Gray with us. Let me bring him on camera here. So I'll introduce you really quick, and I'll let you do most of the talking here, Ian. Welcome to the show. Ian is the host of Confident Live Marketing Podcast. He is a live streamer, marketing professional, a public speaker, and he also is the guy who recently took over our Instagram stories live from Content Marketing World. So we'll talk a little bit about Content Marketing World, ask you about that a little bit later. So generally, awesome guy. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Glenn. It's great to be on, and it's quite funny because you guys were on my show earlier today, so we've been talking all day.
That worked out. Yeah, we Ken and I were on Confident Live Marketing Podcast this morning, and so look for that podcast coming out soon, I guess, right? So that will come through to wherever podcasts are played, and then now we have you on a few hours later. So how did it go? How do you think our podcast went, Ian?
Yeah, it went well. Yeah, we tried not to get too geeky, but you want a little bit of geeky stuff going on. But yeah, it was really good fun to have you guys on and to hear about the backstory, how Ecamm Live started off, and just to hear it from your point of view. It was really interesting.
Thanks. So tell us a little bit about your backstory. Pretend like I know nothing about you. What's the...
Well, my goodness. So I actually trained back in the day as a professional singer. I mean, at school, I had this choice. Do I go down the science background or do I go down the musical background? My mum was an opera singer, and I ended up training to be a professional singer at music college. Set up a blog. I was building websites for for clients around the country, and I was started to be really interested in social media and social media technology. So if you fast forward a little bit, I was ending up speaking at Social Media Marketing World about social media, and Facebook Live became a thing. And I suddenly realized that I could bring my background as a performer with my love of technology to help entrepreneurs get confidence in front of the camera, even when they're not feeling very confident, but also confident with the technology as well. So that's how the Confident Live thing came about.
Oh, cool. And so as the founder of Confident Live, what kind of things do you do? I know you do the podcast. What else is there?
So yeah, well, I actually do it as a live show first. So we go live to Facebook. Okay. So it's a Facebook Live show. I'm hoping to do LinkedIn Live as well and a few other channels as well. But basically at the moment it's Facebook Live. And then we repurpose that into a podcast. I add a beginning and an end, have a bit of fun with it, get my kids and wife involved as well. Nice. And then we also make it into a blog, into lots of social media posts as well. So that's one of the things that I really love about live video. It's so quick and easy to create it, whereas I love blogging, but it would take me 2 to 3 weeks to create a really in-depth blog, whereas from this, it will take me half an hour to an hour to create the content and then make it into all these different platforms. The other thing is I help entrepreneurs to level up their impact and authority using live video. So I do consultancy coaching, and I've got courses, and I do all that kind of stuff as well, and speak as well, which I love doing.
Cool. And you also, you're a wealth of knowledge about the technology side of this, right? I mean, on your podcast this morning, Ian kept saying, let's not get geeky, and it was just a fool's errand because, all Ken and I wanted to talk about was the technology, and then you would join in, and 5 minutes later we realized we just talked about the geeky stuff.
We did, but it was fun.
But what I really think is so interesting is this idea of online confidence. What kind of so you actually work with people from the performance aspect of it. Do you think that Ken and I could benefit from a little bit of this training to try and be more confident on camera and more and more natural?
I think everyone can. There's a phrase that I come up with called a heightened authenticity, because one of the great things about live video is it's all about being yourself. You don't want to be something that you're not. So there are some people out there that are so full of energy, they're really full on, and that's great, but not all of us are like that. Some of us are a little bit more calm, and so you want to still be yourself, but you want to ramp up the energy a little bit. So it's kind of like if you're on stage in front of 100 or 300 people, you're going to ramp up the energy a lot more. Whereas I'm speaking to you in a coffee shop, then I'm probably going to speak at this level. Whereas if I'm speaking on stage, it's going to be, "Hi, how are you, Glenn? How are you doing?" And if I spoke to you like that on the street, you'd probably run in the other direction, thinking I was a complete madman. But video, I think, sits in between those two things. So you want to ramp up the energy, you want to build a little bit more volume, a bit more highs and lows in your voice as well, and be confident in who you are and in your message as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I this kind of situation, I feel like I want to treat it like we're just talking.
Yeah.
Where like it'll keep me from being like ridiculously weird and awkward and animated. Like, you know, like suddenly my voice gets higher. Hey, you know, what's up? Yeah. So I have trouble really kind of like relaxing and feeling like I'm just like sort of confident and myself on camera. But definitely the kind of thing that comes with practice, I guess. Everyone's
going to be different, and I think you shouldn't compare yourself to other people. That was one problem that I had, in that I was comparing myself to some people who are doing live video who have got so much energy. And if I tried to do that, it would be really false. So it's like, you know, if you tried to be something that you're not, then again, that's false. But I think with you can still be authentic, but you can still ramp up the energy a little bit, and there are techniques that you can do. One of the things that I'm a big believer in is warming up your voice and your body before you go live. So there are some exercises you can do vocally and physically, very similar to like what you would do before you go to the gym, before you do some exercise. So stretching exercises are really good, and just warming up your voice, getting the lows and the highs in your voice. Because one of the worst things is, and you don't do this, but I've seen other people do this, and they end up speaking on a monotone like this, and it ends up being really boring, and your viewers fall asleep, and it's really bad. So getting a little bit of highs and lows in your voice, maybe not ridiculous like this, but in between, and just.
So this is your singing background coming through.
Yeah.
When I hear warming up your voice, I mean, I immediately think of getting ready to sing. So.
Well, it's kind of, so the things that I talk about are stretching. So just stretching up to the ceiling, stretching, making sure your shoulders are relaxed. A lot of us hold a lot of tension in our necks and in our shoulders, and so I find that just relaxing those makes a massive difference. You'll end up not losing your voice, and you'll be a lot more consistent in your vocal projection. So that's one thing. The other thing is just relaxing the face as well, just making sure the face is nice and relaxed. And the really important thing, I think, is breath control, breathing. So I always like to stand when I do my live videos, but if you're not standing, then you need to make sure that your posture is really good, that you're breathing into your lungs. So we could get quite technical here, but this is what I call diaphragmatic breathing. This basically means it's breathing into your lungs at the side, so your diaphragm is being used. Whereas most of us as adults, we get really lazy, and we end up just breathing in our chest like this, so we end up going like that, which causes a lot of shortness of breath and actually makes you less confident, and you can get a bit when you do your live videos, that can really affect your delivery as well. So those are just some of the things that you can do, some warm-up exercises before you go live.
Interesting. I'm a sloucher. So I'll set everything up, slouching, and then I'll stand up straight, and suddenly the camera angle is my head goes off the screen.
Yeah.
But luckily I've got a pneumatic chair, so I can adjust the level.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's the equivalent of a standing desk, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah. I've never tried. So do you recommend the standing desk?
Yeah, I've got a really high-tech standing desk. No, I'm joking. I basically got a normal desk with 4 box files on top of it, and I put my laptop on. And when I don't want to use it, I just take the box files away. And that works for me. But again, some live shows work really well when you're sitting on the couch or you're sitting on a chair. But just make sure your posture is good, so your shoulders are down, your chest is erect, and your back is straight. The Italian singing school used to call this the noble position. So imagine that you're a really important person, like a noble person, and you're just looking confident without looking ridiculous.
Very interesting. So Ken, when Ken and I are online live, sometimes we'll write like little notes to each other on with pencil, on the table. And last time two times ago when we were live, he just writes, "Smile more," because apparently, I don't know, I looked grumpy and not happy. So
but that's really, if somebody tells you to smile more, you put this false smile on. It's like this. And so one thing that I love to do before I go live, I don't always do this, but I definitely recommend it, is just to do some silly vocal warm-up. So one of the things I do is I will do a lip trill exercise. So like this, and you'll start at the bottom of your voice, go up to the top, and then down again. So have a bit of fun with it. And then you can also do some like facial exercises where you're opening your mouth, making your face really big, and then make it really small. So you're really exercising your...
I didn't know I was going to have this much fun in this.
Yeah. And then the final thing you can do is you do not have to be a singer for this, and I'm not going to get you to sing live on Ecamm, don't worry. But you could just sing a silly song, so like a tongue twister. So a song that I've done at some of the conferences I've spoken at, I've sung "Daddy's Got a Head Like a Ping Pong Ball" to the tune of the William Tell Overture. So it goes something like this. Daddy's got a head like a ping pong ball. Daddy's got a head like a ping pong ball. Daddy's got a head like a ping pong ball, like a ping pong ball. And the great thing about that is it's so silly that you can't help laughing at the end of it.
So that'll be a real smile. It won't be fake.
Exactly.
Oh, so funny. This is great advice. I'm loving this. So
and there's actually, sorry, just to one more thing. There is a great app. There's an app. We like apps for everything, don't we? So there's an app for Android and iOS devices called 1 Minute Voice Warm Up, and it's developed by some friends of mine in this singing world. But it's for everyone who does any kind of public speaking, live video, and it just gives you all these kind of vocal exercises to do before you go live. They're really good, and I highly recommend it. So breath control, improving your diction, vocal energy, all those kind of things. And so you can do that before you go live just to make sure you're properly warmed up.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And it's also probably a great way to do a sound check too.
Yeah.
So you can record that, then play it back, and you can hear the low sounds and the high sounds, make sure everything sounds good. Well, this is also fascinating because when I think about getting ready for a live stream, I'm just thinking about the technical aspect.
Yes.
So this is just kind of like a shift in thinking for me about what I should be doing to get ready.
Well, the technical side of things is absolutely vital because, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but, many of us will have had disasters because we haven't properly sorted out the tech. So I always recommend having a checklist to make sure you go through everything. You're checking the audio is okay, the bandwidth is okay. You've maybe switched off Dropbox and all those kind of apps that are, make sure you do sort out the tech. But then the bit that we tend to forget is warming up the voice and making sure that we're sorted out technically as well.
That's absolutely true. One thing I remembered to do just now was turn off the air conditioner that kicks on all the time, constantly, and this makes a big whooshing noise in the broadcast. So hopefully there's not much of a whoosh going on there. So this is really great. I'm so glad you could join us and give us these great tips. Let's talk a little bit about your live streaming. For those of you who don't know Ian, I'll tell you he's this wealth of knowledge about all of the different ways to go live. When we first met Ian, it was because he was, he had like he knew exactly, this app can do this other app can do this other app can do this. Like, can you guys do this? And it was like, teach us, like what we should be doing, what we should be adding to the app. And so he knows his Wirecast, he knows his B Live, his OBS, his Ecamm Live, and that's how we know that when he is, has a question about the app, that he knows what he's talking about. So, anyone has any questions for Ian about different platform comparisons, also, Facebook versus all the other platforms to go live on. I know you've been on LinkedIn, right? So all that, any questions you have for Ian about going live to those platforms, put them down in the comments. We are actually restreaming today to Facebook and to YouTube, and the comments are coming through from both platforms. So I should be able to see those here in Ecamm Live. Just tell us a little bit about how you got into live streaming in general at the start.
So it was kind of by accident. So it was about 3.5 years ago. Facebook Live became a thing, and it seemed like everyone had it except for me. And this was partly because living in the UK, a lot of my American friends, they got it first. And also, I was an Android user at the time, and so everything was rolled out to iPhone first, America first, and I had to get it. I was looking for a way to broadcast to Facebook, and I discovered a tool called OBS Studio, and I found a way that you could get the stream key, which is this kind of special key that you need to put into OBS Studio to And as a result of that, I then launched.
I think I've seen that article. Yeah, that's a great article.
Yeah, and it completely took me by surprise. But then from that, I launched a course, my first course, which went really, really well on OBS Studio. And I think it was because people were really wanting to go live on Facebook, but it was just too complicated at the time. And this is before Ecamm Live and other tools like BeLive. I mean, the only way really was to use Wirecast or OBS Studio. So then I then started to look at all the other tools. I looked at Wirecast, and then when Ecamm Live came out, I started obviously playing around with that and all the other tools. And one of the things I've always loved to do, which I used to do with social media tools before, I used to blog a lot about that, is compare all the tools and make it really easy for people out there to make the best choice for them. So I looked at all the different tools, looked at the pros and cons, and that's what I've been doing. And then I obviously through that I started live streaming. At the time, I didn't particularly enjoy doing it. I'll be honest with you, I was quite nervous. I was thinking, scary stuff. But the more I did it, the more I loved it, and I started to bring my background as a performer in front of the camera. Although there's an important distinction there, I still to this day find it easier to speak to hundreds or maybe even over 1,000 people on stage than do a live stream to a camera, because the main difference is you can't see your audience, whereas on stage you can see them. So I've had to learn that over time, and now I do find it a lot easier, but that's taken time and practice to get to that point.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've heard performers say, like, that the audience is kind of like their oxygen, and you have to kind of, I guess you need to kind of learn to not to kind of get other sources of oxygen if no one is there.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So we got a comment while I had it punched up to just your camera that apparently the Skype is muted on that scene. So whoops. So we lost a little bit, maybe 10 seconds of you talking.
Oh dear. Well, that's funny, because that is one of the things that I always used to do. It's actually a bit more difficult in Ecamm Live to do that, but back in the OBS Studio days and the Wirecast day, you had to set up every single scene separately.
Okay.
You had to add the microphone to every single scene that you went on. Whereas I think on Ecamm you have to actually deliberately switch it off. So
yeah, so our viewer Liz here called it correctly. Yeah, I think this is exactly what it is. The mic is muted probably in that scene. So Ecamm Live it's always going to have your mics. Your mics don't change for the scene, but the mute settings do. So I must have just repurposed the scene here that had this. So let me switch over to it and check it out. Yeah, it was muted, so now I unmuted it, so we can
you can
still
hear
hear
me
you.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello.
So this is it's a great feature because, like, say you actually did want a scene where you can't hear the Skype guest, like an intro or an outro. You definitely want to make sure your intro and outro scenes have everything muted, because the guest might be making small talk or something and like not think that they're not live and their audio is coming through to the broadcast.
Yeah.
All right, I think I fixed it now. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, and then Brian says, "Yep, it sounds good now." So thanks for keeping us in the loop, audience. What would we do without our audience?
Well, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I mean, one of the things I say to everyone starting with live video is things are going to go wrong, even when you're experienced. I mean, I still do things wrong today. I had my checklist, which I always say to my clients, always follow the checklist. And then I kind of sometimes don't do it myself. So things still go wrong, but I think just embrace the wrong. I mean, some people, if that has happened to them, then they'd muted the guest halfway through. They would be probably so distressed by that they'd give up and they'd stop broadcasting. And so don't worry, it happens to all of us. I've had, I was going live on a webinar just the other week, and the internet went down halfway through. So there's nothing you can do about that. Things are going to happen. Or some other stories that make me laugh is that I was going live on my phone, and I was going to press the end broadcast button. I was in a really tidy part of my office, and I pressed the flip camera button only to reveal my messy office. So there's things like that can happen too. But it doesn't matter, does it?
I almost feel like people are people are fairly patient. They know, the internet. They know about the internet going down. They know about technical problems. So people definitely more forgiving than something like listen to something that's pre-produced. And the way you do it, right? You were telling me earlier that you actually do a live stream, and meanwhile Ecamm Live is recording that, and you're actually using that to produce a podcast afterwards, right? So that's an interesting model that people could think about using, where your primary goal almost is to record a podcast, but people that want to watch sort of like making of the podcast, or kind of feel a little bit like they're kind of on the inside track, can watch it, the production of it live. Have you considered even you could, if you had a following that was big enough fans, they could actually subscribe to see the making of the podcast. They could kind of feel like they're insiders. They get to see it done live. They don't have to wait for it to come out the next day. That could be an interesting idea.
Well, there's a lot of people have asked me, or a few people have asked me, why. So you've got this podcast called the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. Why are you producing a podcast about live video? And the main reason I did that is that my audience are really interested in producing live video, but certainly 70 to 80% of them prefer to consume podcasting. So it's that they're maybe kind of driving around, or they're walking the dog, and they want to learn how to do live streaming confidently as they go about their business day to day. So that was my main reason of doing that. But I wanted to start with a live show. I wanted to start it that way because, first of all, I want to demonstrate the practice. Second of all, I want to grow my following and my exposure on social media anyway. And then the other thing is that the great thing about live video is you can people are watching live, so they can ask great questions. So this is happening on this show. This happened earlier today. People are asking questions, and it makes the podcast, as long as you do it properly, and you've got to be sensitive to your podcast listeners, it works really well. It gives it a much more interactive feel. So, and you can encourage your podcast listeners to get involved with the show and ask questions as well, and get so that works really well. But you've got to be careful. You've got to make this distinction between your live viewers and your replay viewers, or your podcast viewers. Because if you spend all your time with your live viewers, that's great for them, but your replay viewers and your podcast listeners are going to get really bored because you're continually referring to them. So you've got to think about that. You've got to split your brain in a way.
And that's really interesting. Yeah, it's definitely like a balance that I hadn't really thought about. Like you definitely wouldn't want to spend the whole show like I don't know, answering live comments, because other people listening in the podcast, they're just going to feel like they missed the show, I guess, really.
Yeah.
But I hope, and it's interesting to think about the live show as a way to produce content that you can repurpose in so many other ways. Like all of these Meet the Pros episodes are live, but they're also, if you go to our YouTube channel, they're all live and pre-recorded. And if we really had, we don't do this because we don't have enough time, but those could not even be the original live. We could have edited those down for length or content, sliced and diced them and made them look more like a produced piece before they go up onto YouTube.
But you can plan this into the live show. So what I do is, as you'll have seen earlier, is we have a bit of a informal chat at the beginning, and then we start the recording of the podcast. So I purposely make the first bit really informal. We welcome the live viewers, and then we start with the main show, which is then turned into that podcast. And of course, I could then edit that bit into a video on YouTube. And this is the great thing I love about Ecamm Live, as opposed to some of the web tools out there like BeLive and StreamYard. They're great. I love them, but at the moment you can't save the video in a high quality, whereas with Ecamm you can. So you can then edit that and put it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it was particularly useful when there was a bug on Facebook. I don't know whether anyone else is experiencing this, but there was this weird bug on Facebook where you were kind of going live in two places on the same page, but one of them wasn't. And then I realized that nobody was watching because there was a problem. So I could then get the video that Ecamm had saved and then make it into a Facebook premiere or like a YouTube video.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so many ways you can do this. All right, Ian. I promised I'd keep this under 30 minutes, so let's just wrap up with some final thoughts here. I mean, what can you give me? What comment would you give me about this Meet the Pros series? I mean, how would you improve our series a little bit if you had to? I don't know if you've seen a lot of our episodes here, but if you have any ideas for us, how we could kind of take things to the next level.
I love the idea, so I think just carry on with what you're doing, and I think over time there'll be it's more like little subtle improvements that you're going to make. So it's probably down to really the interviewing, making sure that you're really strict with the timing and the comments are really the questions are really good, and that you make sure that the person you're interviewing doesn't go on and on and on, which hopefully I haven't done. So that takes time, because sometimes you can have guests that, and I don't think you've had that on Meet the Pros.
No, I don't think we have.
I don't think you have, but it's a potential issue depending on who you have on. But just to make sure that you're delivering that value and that people know what they're getting. But no, I think it's great. I don't think there's anything that I can think of straight away that I would change about it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end here. So I'll just say, Meet the Pros is a weekly thing. So make sure, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, subscribe to make sure you get notifications about our upcoming shows on Tuesdays. Ian Anderson Gray, I want to thank you for joining us today, carving some time out of your evening to join us. Is it evening? It must be evening there by now.
Yeah, it's 7:30 p.m. Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We learned a lot. I can't wait to go and practice my stretching and my vocal exercises before my next live. And thanks everyone out there for joining us and keeping us informed about our audio situation on the live comments. And we'll see you next week. Bye, Ian. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Glenn. Bye, everyone.